Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees take the series in Sacramento against the Athletics, and in large part thanks to the 13-run inning in the rubber game, the Sunday game, where the Yankees actually in the other 8 innings didn't do anything, went down 1-2-3, but put up just a remarkable third inning where the Yankee record was for a single inning was 14 runs. I think back in 1920, the last time they had scored 13 runs in a single inning was 2005 against the Rays, I believe. And this is the first time a major league team had scored 10 runs without an out. And it was ridiculous. Like the first, I think 12 batters reached safely in this inning. And I think it was the first time since the Red Sox in 2009 where a team scored 10 runs before, again, recording an out. Also, a weird stat, the Yankees were the first American League team to score 13 runs and not have any runs in any other inning. Like I said, the other two were, I believe, the Braves, a 1970s Braves team, and like maybe a 2000s Phillies team. So rare company. And it's nice to win the series, considering the fact that the Yankees, lost 2 of 3 earlier in the season at Yankee Stadium against these A's. The A's, I think it's an improved team. They perform a lot better on the road. That stadium, it's very unique, and no lead is safe. And that was evident really in games 2 and 3, where the Yankees almost had a miraculous comeback in the 9th inning in game 2, which we'll talk about. And then game 3, even though the Yankees took a 13-3 lead, it almost got a little bit dicey towards the end, where the A's were only just a couple batters away from getting the tying run-up. So that, again, expect some weirdness, and the A's have experienced that. But nonetheless, a series the Yankees should have won and did win. And 2 out of 3 is totally fine. A very successful road trip, going 5-1. Combined against the Royals and Athletics before the Yankees will head home for a 6-game homestand against the Guardians and Red Sox. But record improves to 36-23. As far as the American League East is concerned, it's the same, where the Rays, they took 2 of 3 home against the Angels. So no harm, no foul. And I would argue that if anything, given this is on the road, the Yankees maybe had the slightly tougher matchup of the weekend, so I'm fine with kind of staying where it was. So the Yankees are 3 back on the loss side of the Rays, 1.5 games overall. And yeah, let's just jump right into it as far as best player and worst player of the series goes. And with a lot of runs scored, look, not so much in game 2, but as we said, the 13-run inning in the third game, and the Yankees did put up an 8 spot in game 1. It's Ben Rice. Rice was fantastic at the plate. It's funny, he continues to DH. And I don't think, it's possible I missed it, but I don't think anyone's asked about it. Goldschmidt has continuously been the first baseman. They're not even every now and then making the swap. So it's something that I find a little bit intriguing. I do believe that Paul Goldschmidt is the better defensive first baseman than Ben Rice, but Rice has been focusing on the hitting, and as a DH has been great. He goes 7 for 13, 4 runs. He would collect 3 doubles. He would get a triple, a homer, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And that's why when you think about Ben Rice, and I want to get it up to date as far as where he is, it's really just been him and Yordan Alvarez as far as the top 2 OPS players. And Ben Rice, as I'm recording this, he has surpassed Yordan Alvarez as far as OPS with a 1.055, whereas Alvarez is 1.050. So those are the only 2 players with an above 1 OPS. Ben Rice, 17 homers, 44 RBIs, a 306 batting average. The slugging is the best in baseball at 658. And the at-bats per home run, he's in 4th behind Schwarber, Murakami, and Alvarez. So Ben Rice has been the MVP, not Aaron Judge. That's just, here we are 2 months plus into the season, and it's pretty ridiculous what Ben Rice has achieved, but he is the best player of the series. As far as worst player of the series, it wasn't quite as obvious. And to be fair, honestly, there were some pretty good pitching performances too that could have been worthy of best player of the series. For worse, I'm going to go with Jazz Chisholm Jr., who actually he only played in the first 2 games. And he combines to go 1 for 10, had a single in the second game, and, wasn't horrific in terms of strikeouts. He had a walk. Let's see. No walks. He had 1 strikeout in the 2 games. But really, what I guess put it over the top for me as far as giving this to Jazz was the final at-bat in game 2, where, to be fair, he hit the ball pretty well. I think it was over 90 miles per hour off the bat. However, he took a couple of pitches right down the middle, 88-mile-per-hour fastballs from Scott Barlow that you need to take advantage in that spot. And, it's not being overly aggressive. It's just those are kind of meatballs that you have a chance to do damage on. And it was a rally that kind of out of nowhere, bunch of walks mainly, which we'll again talk about. But Jazz gets that final out in the second game. So he is my worst player of the series. As far as any transactions go in this 3-game set, there was just one. Ahmed Rosario, I believe it was before game 2, was placed on the paternity list. So because the game was out west, the Yankees just kind of went with 1 man short, a 3-man bench. And so Rosario, presumably I would expect him to be back in the lineup and back on the roster Tuesday night against Cleveland at the stadium. But Rosario was out, and really he, no harm, no foul, I would say, because he would have been in there. I mean, the game that they lost, maybe he would have appeared for a pinch hit appearance in game 2 at some point. But game 3, he would have started against the lefty, but the Yankees won anyway. So Rosario, wishing him the best. And, he'll be back shortly. So game 1, Yankees get off to a quick start. And it was against old friend Luis Severino. And, Yankees got to Severino last year. The first start against him this year, Yankee Stadium, they let him off the hook. He really didn't perform all that well, but the Yankees just couldn't get the big hit when they needed it. Here, he would only pitch 1 inning. And he wasn't effective, but in warming up for the second inning, he had some shoulder issues. And I believe they placed Severino on the IL. I'm pretty sure of that. So he would go 1 inning, 3 hits, 4 runs, none earned, actually. No walks, 1 strikeout. So we'll talk about another unearned, a frustration that I had in game 3 where Will Warren's involved, and his line was actually, no earned runs, but actually had 3. But Severino drops to 2-6 on the season with that loss, and it was Carlos Rodón. And when I was talking about people that could have been worthy of best player of the series, Rodón could have been one of them. He wasn't dominant, but hey, he's been doing better, his last couple of starts. Gets his first win of the season, 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. So the strikeout count was low, but this had a chance to kind of, it wasn't looking that good for Carlos Rodón. So I give him credit for kind of settling things down, and this game didn't become scary. And at this stadium, it can. So great job by Yankee pitching here. And, as far as lineup was concerned, J.C. Escarra was catching. Wells would get the starts in games 2 and 3. Again, as far as I'm concerned, not a whole lot of movement there where I could have, for worst player of the series, I could have done as, many times would have been very, very, reasonable would be to go with an Escarra Wells, worst player of the series catching combo. But, Michael Kay, I think I mentioned in game 2 that Escarra is going to consider trying to be a switch hitter. Like, good for him as far as, because the Yankees do need a right-handed catcher, in my opinion. I don't know that Escarra becoming a switch hitter is the answer to that, but, trying to be a team guy and really for his own sake, because he would be at risk of losing a roster spot if they do acquire a right-handed catcher. But anyway, other than that, the lineup was basically as we'd assume it to be. Lately, they've been sticking with Rice in the 2 spot, Judge at the 3. And it's certainly been serving Rice very well. Judge, not as much. Aaron Judge has not been quite right. The numbers on the whole are pretty good, are good by league standards, very good. But for Judge, he hasn't really and it's kind of scary, right? Because like he still put up a lot of home runs, and the OPS is still over 900, but it hasn't quite been there for him, through May. But anyway, Anthony Volpe was on the bench for game 1, and they sat Caballero in game 2. So that's an evolving situation as we kind of see what they do as far as the shortstop position goes. But anyway, first inning, the Yankees take advantage of an error by Nick Kurtz, a throwing error where Ben Rice reaches. And that got some things going for the Yanks as after a balk by Severino, Aaron Judge gets an RBI single to make it 1-0. Then Cody Bellinger singles to make it first and second. Jazz grounds out. And so in theory, the inning could have been over. Let's say that out is made on the Rice play. Then there's no runs. But because of that error, Paul Goldschmidt is up and he hits a 3-run homer off of Severino. So what's good about Goldschmidt is lately, I feel like he's been a little more competent against righties. I still don't love him against right-handed pitching. The numbers bear that out. But I do, to be fair, I feel like he's been definitely better of late, and the splits aren't quite as drastic. But it's a Goldie 3-run bomb, his 6th homer of the year, to give the Yankees a 4-0 lead. And from there, Severino's night was over. In the bottom of the first, Nick Kurtz would homer off of Rodón, lefty versus lefty, 9th homer of the year for Kurtz to make it 4-1. Jose Suarez would replace Severino in the second, and in that inning, you would get a Ben Rice RBI single to knock in Jose Caballero to make it 5-1. Rodón, he threw a lot of pitches the first few innings, and he definitely got better as the night went along. In the third, it would be Ryan McMahon homering, his 6th home run of the season, and out of his 6 home runs, that was actually his 2nd home run that he pulled. So and his first pulled home run on the road, actually. So that makes it 6-1 right there. And then the Yankees would score in the 4th inning, and it would be a Aaron Judge RBI ground out to make it 7-1. So the Yankees scored in each of the first 4 innings. Carlos Rodón, I would really say it was the 5th and 6th, honestly, where he was at his best, where, had a couple of 1, 2, 3 innings. In the top of the 7th, off of Scott Barlow, it would be Ben Rice hitting his 17th homer of the year to give the Yankees an 8-1 lead. Then Brent Hedrick would come on. Hedrick has definitely, struggled lately, right? And maybe that's to be expected. I mean, Hedrick is a guy that hasn't been a regular major leaguer. This year's the first time. Last year, he was more in AAA than at the major league level. And Fernando Cruz would come on in the bases loaded 1-out spot and get Carlos Cortez to hit into a double play. Cruz makes a nice play to Escara, to Goldschmidt, a 1-2-3 double play, and escapes what Hedrick had done. Then Paul Blackburn would finish it out. The former A would pitch a scoreless 8th. The 9th inning, he would give up a run. There would be an RBI single for Zach Galloff. But other than that, he is able to do all right, and the Yankees win game 1 by a final score of 8-2. So now game 2 rolls around, and, Ryan Weathers probably deserved a better fate. Was probably left in a little bit too long by Aaron Boone. We'll discuss that. And really, this year, when I look at Weathers, it's been the home run ball. He's led 11 home runs. That's a lot. Like, if he can cut that down, he's really had, again, he doesn't get much run support, right? It's funny. His numbers compared to Will Warren's, not that much different. But Will Warren, he got his 7th win today. Ryan Weathers only has 2. So Weathers hasn't exactly gotten the support on the offensive side. But it's too bad because the final line for Weathers ends up not being all that great. And it was the home run ball that got him. And that's on him. But, he really was looking pretty sharp. And then towards the end, it kind of got away from him again. The pitch count was high. He ended up throwing 107 pitches, which I believe was a season high for Weathers. For the A's, a well-pitched game by right-hander JT Ginn, who's had a really solid season in general. He goes 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run. It was not an earned run. 3 walks and 4 strikeouts, and that win improves him to 3-3. Like I said, Wells back in the lineup, Volpe as well. Caballero would have a pinch hitting appearance. But In the first inning, Weathers gives up a 2-run homer to Shea Langoliers. It's Langoliers' 14th homer of the year, and that was on him. Just too good of a pitch, and the A's take an early 2-0 lead, and the Yankees would, in the fourth inning, score a run, in large part, and here's credit to Jazz. Jazz does get a stolen base, which kind of opens things up. It's a steal where Cody Bellinger scores as well due to what was called a miscatch error by the second baseman. And it allowed Bellinger to scoot home from third. Jazz goes to third as well. Then Paul Goldschmidt walks, which is kind of unfortunate because you have Ryan McMahon coming up, and McMahon strikes out. So that was a big batter at that point. And then Austin Wells flies out, sort of softly to center. So not the part of the order you want up. The Yankees had a chance to tie it up. They don't. And so the score remains 2-1. And Weathers, like I said, really doing his thing, but he would allow a home run to Tyler Soderstrom, lefty versus lefty, in the sixth to make it 3-1. And then at the bottom of the seventh is where, and I will mention, there was a pretty big spot for Rice, lefty versus lefty. Hogan Harris came in for the A's, and Rice did strike out with 2 on, 2 out in the top of the seventh. Bottom of the seventh, and I should also mention that Jose Caballero pinch hit for Austin Wells, which is something that we may not have seen. Like, it goes to show you that they're at least aware of Austin Wells' struggles. And so Caballero did pinch hit for him. He did strike out, unfortunately. But in the bottom of the seventh, where Boone admitted he messed up, and I kind of agree with him, where he messed up is he probably should have taken, Weathers out after he struck out Williams looking. Because the pitch count was high. He was 2 outs, and he had Doval warming up. Instead, he leaves him in for Colby Thomas, who works a 6-pitch walk. Then at that point, he leaves in Weathers because it was a lefty-lefty matchup versus Kurtz, even though Kurtz did homer earlier off him, to be fair. So I don't hate leaving Weathers in for Kurtz necessarily, although I would have been okay if they pulled him. It was more that he should have been out before that. And of course, Nick Kurtz, first pitch, 2-run homer. So it ends up being 5 runs allowed for Weathers, 3 homers allowed. Now the score is 5-1. Camilo Doval does come in at the final out of the 7th. Jake Bird will pitch the 8th. And look, Jake Bird has had his struggles. I wouldn't be shocked, once the Yankees, in a certain situation, Jake Bird's roster spot, I think he has options to be sent down. He's a guy that, could certainly be sent down in a given situation if they want to stick with Blackburn and Yarborough. Jake Bird allows a run. A Zach Galloff RBI single made it 6-1 A's. Then at the top of the ninth, the Yankees, against Jack Perkins and Scott Barlow, make things interesting out of nowhere, where with 1 out, Ryan McMahon singles, then Ascara walks, then after a Volpe strikeout, and Volpe didn't look so good in game 2 here, it's just a ton of walks. Trent Grisham walks, and then Scott Barlow comes in. Ben Rice, bases loaded, walk to make it 6-2. Aaron Judge, bases loaded, walk to make it 6-3. And then Cody Bellinger, bases loaded, walk to make it 6-4. And it leads it up to Jazz, who, like I said, unfortunately, there was a couple of hittable pitches. The first pitch and then the 2-1 were like 88-mile-per-hour fastballs, and Jazz let him go. He took them. And then on an inside pitch, that was a strike. He grounds out. Again, he hit it 91-mile-per-hour exit velocity. It's not like it was a soft hit, but not good enough. And, what hurt was Bellinger walking was like, damn. It's like, Bellinger you like up in that situation. And I didn't feel great about him walking. I mean, honestly, even Judge walking, but at least you had Bellinger. It ends up working out for the A's. They hold on for the 6-4 win, and we're all tied up in the series, and the rubber game is Sunday. And for this one, Will Warren picks up his 7th win. Goes to 7-1, 6 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, none of them earned, 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. So good job by Warren. And for the Athletics, it would be Jacob Lopez, the lefty. He struggled mightily in the 3rd inning. Loses to go to 4-3, 2+ innings, 5 hits, 7 runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. For the Yanks, Caballero gets the start at 3rd. Max Schumann, the former A, who has actually been really solid as a Yankee utility guy, he would start at 2nd, would eventually move over to right field later on in the game when they took Aaron Judge out because of the score. But Jazz would be on the bench for this one, and McMahon against the left-handed starter for the A's. Now, let's talk about the bottom of the first. A real frustrating moment was a play that, and look, I understand that the sun was difficult. It was, but where, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit. There was a play that could have maybe been an inning double play on a ground ball by Tyler Soderstrom, where Nick Kurtz, who was out at second, kind of was in Volpe's way, and they talked it over, and the call on the field would stand, where no obstruction, no interference, and like that's okay, right? You could have gone either way with that, and they stuck with the original call, but the inning could have been over. Then Jonah Heim hits a high fly ball to center that Trent Grisham drops, and it was correctly called an error on Trent. And it's just the way he plays. There's just no urgency out there. I know it's his style, but I just can't stand it. And so 2 runs score on that error, and then Lawrence Butler gets an RBI single. So 3 runs unearned to Will Warren are scored via the Trent Grisham error. And it's just, I think the Yankees rate him better than he is as a center fielder. It's a starter of the year. And I wouldn't get hung up on that number. But I don't know what the metrics show this year. I know last year they were bad. I know he also was dealing with the hamstring. I just think that he's like almost revered to the point where like I would trust Cody Bellinger out there in center more than Trent Grisham. That's just me. But yeah, I would kind of be more hung up on that if the Yankees hadn't won this game. Let's say they lost, and that was the big reason why. That would be more of a talking point, But anyway, 3-0 A's, and then the top of the third. Let's just get into it. And the crazy thing is the Yankees did literally nothing the other 8 innings. It's this bizarre, a line and a statistical game as you'll see. Anthony Volpe single, he steals second. Schumann walk. Austin Wells walk. An infield single for Paul Goldschmidt to make it 3-1. A 2-run double for Ben Rice to tie it at 3. RBI single Judge to make it 4-3. Cody Bellinger singles to move the line, to move the runners up. Michael Kelly comes in to replace Jacob Lopez. It's a bases loaded walk for Jose Caballero to make it 5-3. Trent Grisham with a 2-run single to make it 7-3. A double steal for Caballero and Grisham. A RBI single for Caballero, for Volpe to make it 8-3. He steals second. 2-run double for Max Schumann to make it 10-3. Austin Wells walks. Then Paul Goldschmidt strikes out looking for the first batter out. So again, they got on the first 12 batters. They went around the order twice. It was 18 batters that were up this inning. Just ridiculous. But the funny thing is with the Goldschmidt strikeout, if it was actually a ball. Now, it would have been a 1-2 count, so maybe he wouldn't have done anything. But technically speaking, that was actually incorrectly called. He didn't challenge it. Then Ben Rice gets a 2-run triple. So it would be a 4 RBI inning for Ben Rice, a couple of extra base hits. Aaron Judge would strike out, and then Cody Bellinger gets an RBI single to make it 13-3. Caballero would single to move Bellinger over to third. They bring on Jack Perkins, and with the chance of the Yankees to tie or take the historical lead with the 14 runs, an inning falls short as Trent Grisham flies out. But just a remarkable, you're not going to see something like that very often, obviously. And, from there, Will Warren was really, really good. In a stadium that just yields runs, he was able to hold it where it was. And then the Yankee bullpen had its struggles. Tim Hill, and I'll give Tim Hill this credit. Tim Hill is a guy that you do want up there in big situations, right? And I would even say Fernando Cruz as well. Those are 2 pitchers that do seem to do worse in lesser spots. And unfortunately for Tim Hill, his numbers have moved up a bit, where he had a microscopic ERA. I know bullpen ERA is misleading. It's now over 4, as in this inning, he would allow a home run to Brent Rooker, his 8th homer of the year, and a 3-run homer to Jonah Heim, his 2nd. Look, Tim Hill against righties, he is susceptible and gives up some slug as well. Bottom of the 8th, Fernando Cruz allows a couple of doubles. It would be an RBI double for Nick Kurtz to make it 13-8. And then David Benner on the 9th. Look, if Jeff McNeil was a little bit more patient, he ends up striking out. Jeff McNeil, there was a couple of balls that he swings at, fouls off, strikes out. And if he walks, that's basically sort of 1 out. But luckily, he gets that strikeout, and then he gets Bednar, that is, to ground out. Yankees win by a final score of 13-8. So now they head home to take on the Guardians, who have been playing some pretty good ball. I guess of very recently, not as well, as they are coming off of a series home against the Red Sox where they lost 2 of 3. But overall, they're leading the American League Central, although the Chicago White Sox are certainly not far behind them at all, which is pretty a remarkable story. But it will be for the Guardians, Joey Cantillo, who, his ERA is decent, but the whip is pretty high, against Cam Schlittler. So pretty solid matchup in the Yankees' favor there. Then game 2 will be Gavin Williams against Garrett Cole. That's a good one. That's a really good one. That's the Guardians' ace against Garrett Cole, who the first 2 starts of this season has been fantastic. So that's probably your best overall pitch match. And then game 3 for the Guardians will be Slade Ciccone, who does not have good numbers, and he'll be facing off against Carlos Rodón. So look, very reasonable for the Yankees to win this series. Again, against the Guardian team that has, been playing overall pretty well. But, you have Schlittler, you have Cole, like some things line up well in this Guardians series. And so we'll see what happens. But the Yankees 36-23, a game and a half behind the Rays, 3 on the loss side, and, can head home feeling pretty good after they take the rubber game against the Athletics. They win by scoring 13 runs in the 3rd inning. Pretty crazy stuff. So they will begin a 6-game homestand at Yankee Stadium Tuesday night against the Guardians.